Suella Braverman's resignation response, I think, is the correct term for that. TalkTV's chief political correspondent is with us, Peter Cardwell. Is that a resignation speech? Is that just a... She's entitled to that as a senior minister that stepped down. Was she fired? Did she step down?
Well, she was actually fired. So, yes, this is the resignation statement, essentially. And she has every right to make that to the House of Commons. Yep. Obviously, it happened a couple of weeks ago, nearly 3 weeks ago during the reshuffle now. So, yes, a lot of familiar themes there, talking about withdrawing from the European Convention on Human Rights, for example. She also talked about, the Prime Minister would have my full support if it's a full-throated plan to get people to Rwanda, for example. She said things like the number of boats in the channel, the numbers going down slightly by a third is not the same as stopping the boats. There are a lot of elements within this that are very familiar from her letter. I don't think that was a barnstorming speech. I don't think it was a game changer particularly. I think there are a lot of themes, a lot of things that she said that we've heard before, but nonetheless difficult for Rishi Sunak, especially this week with the Rwanda Treaty now signed and the emergency legislation, which Suella Braverman said, come on mate, where is it? Show it to us. We should have that tomorrow or early next week, that emergency legislation. And one thing that, despite the fact she is possibly 15, 20, maybe even up to 30 supporters of MPs on the Conservative benches, what's interesting is that she said she thinks to get the emergency legislation put forward and get those flights to Rwanda as quickly as possible, that the House should sit over Christmas. A lot of MPs are not going to support that.
No, they're not going to support that. Why is she so desperate to get this one area, particularly Rwanda, which seems to be an absolute fascination? We remember the interview she gave, I think it was the Telegraph, where she talked about her dream is to see planes, plural, taking off to Rwanda. And we all know, even supporters of the scheme know, that there won't be such a scenario. There aren't enough places for it to look as if you've dealt anywhere near with the enormity of the problem. So we might see, at the very best, a few hundred people over the next year go to Rwanda. But that seems hugely symbolic to the Tories.
Well, Ian, you're absolutely right, and it is highly unlikely that anybody will be getting on a plane to go to Rwanda as part of this scheme before the next election. And Keir Starmer, who looks as if he'll be the next Prime Minister, saying that he will scrap the scheme. But with Suella Braverman, I think you've got a real difference from Rishi Sunak. He certainly has beliefs, there's no doubt about it, he does, but as Prime Minister he has had to make a number of compromises on his beliefs, not least furlough, for example, giving out a sort of socialistic measure very much against his Thatcherite principles. Suella Braverman is a conviction politician. She believes things. She is absolutely certain that this Rwanda scheme should go ahead. It's something that she fully wants to happen. With Rishi Sunak, he's trying to kind of manage his party, he's trying to manage the politics of the country as well, but with Suella Braverman she has one aim, and now she's completely off the leash. Any leash that she was on with number 10, not that it worked particularly effectively, is now gone. And she can say what she likes. She can be as much of a thorn in his side as she wants to be, give as many interviews, not have to take the lines that other government ministers have to take. Now she is quite simply a backbencher.
Yeah. In terms of what happens now, I mean, is she firing a salvo? Is she saying to Rishi Sunak, look, me and others will make life very uncomfortable for you?
I think
because
so.
She does also make the... Sorry, Peter, she makes the point that the party will be obliterated, but she seems to conclude almost that it will be almost on this one issue that is so pivotal above anything else.
Yes, I think you're absolutely right in that assessment, Ian. She sees this particular issue of Rwanda as absolutely totemic, incredibly important, and also in tune with her values, in tune with her being on the right of the Conservative Party and saying that this is something that absolutely should happen. From Rishi Sunak's perspective, he will say he's trying to do every single thing that needs to be done, but a lot of the legislation, the emergency legislation that's going to come out, we're being told, certainly the Times is reporting today, that it won't be about leaving the European Convention on Human Rights. That is something that Suella Braverman is very keen on, but it would just split the Conservative Party massively. So she wants something stronger. It is a salvo with him, I think, saying, I'll support you if you do what I agree with. If you don't do what I agree with, well, then I'm going to be very, very difficult. I'm going to make life difficult for you. And I think on this emergency legislation, if it's not strong enough for Suella Braverman, it'll be very interesting to see how many people she can bring with her. Certainly in the last round of the Conservative leadership campaign that she was in, not the summer just gone, but the previous summer, she got a maximum of 27 votes. Will all those 27 people go with her? Would they vote against Rishi Sunak? Because the number he needs to lose his majority is, interestingly, 26.
So that ties in rather neatly in some respects. But I was about to say on that point, I mean, Suella Braverman is not, she's not the most famous Conservative. She's become famous, some would say infamous, in recent months. But as you say, she had a dismal support at the leadership contest. Prior to that, she was Attorney General. Nobody had really heard of her. She's been Home Secretary for a relatively short period of time because the Prime Minister has only been there for a short period of time. So she isn't... I was looking at her speech, and maybe this is a political anorak point. I think she was standing in exactly the same position as Geoffrey Howe was all those years ago. Even I was a kid back then.
1990.
Indeed. When he famously gave his cricket bat speech, and of course, Mrs Thatcher and John Major were sitting side by side on the front bench at the time that happened. So whether that particular place is synonymous with Home Secretaries resigning, I don't know.
I don't know if everybody does a speech from there. Yes, that was, I just Googled it. It was on the 13th of November 1990. And we remember, of course, that cricket simile. He said, it's rather like sending your opening batsman to the crease, only for them to find the moment the first balls are bowled that their bats have been broken before the game by the team captain, which was absolutely devastating.
And Thatcher was there to witness all of that, but Rishi Sunak wasn't there today to hear...
No, Geoffrey Howe's, from memory, Geoffrey Howe's speech was just after Prime Minister's questions, so Thatcher was there, and of course it was only 3 weeks later that she went. I don't think there's any suggestion that Rishi Sunak will go, but certainly Suella Braverman. She's well known now, and actually when I was at Conservative Party conference about 6 weeks ago, she was the most popular politician there. So I think, I mean, there's a lot of what-ifs. But if we get to a Conservative leadership contest, the big question in terms of her future is, can she get to the final two? Because look at Liz Truss. She's a Liz Truss-esque character in many ways. There are a lot of people in the Conservative Party, the rank and file, who I think would vote for her.